Hello there. Today I wanted to share a tasting with you of a Greek grape variety called Moschofilero, and this is the Lafazanis Winery's Geometria Moschofilero 2021. It's a wine made, it has an IGP of the Peloponnese, but it's actually made in the region of Nemea, which is an inland plain in the middle of the Peloponnese. These vineyards are about 450 metres above sea level, and that's typical. This is a high level plain surrounded by mountains. So despite the fact that it's not in places more than about 30 kilometres from the sea, it's got quite a continental climate because it's sheltered from the sea influence. This is one of the coolest growing areas in Greece, cool in terms of temperature. Pretty nice wines as well, but yeah, so it enables the grape variety, Moschofilero is a muscati type grape variety, to retain its lovely acidity and its beautiful aromatics. So the place and the variety work beautifully together. Now, the Lafazanis Winery was originally started in Piraeus, in the port of Piraeus near Athens, in 1946 by Vassillis Lafazanis. Today the wines are made by Spyros Lafazanis, so I don't know if Spyro is a son or grandson of the founder, but it's still in the same family hands. They have a winery now in Nemea, where the winery is surrounded by its own vineyard. They have 10 hectares of vineyards there, growing red varieties, but they only supply something like about sort of 10% of their needs for wine production from their own vineyards, and they deal with about 300 growers, so that's quite a complex growing arrangement, and they try and supervise the way that the grapes are grown in those vineyards. The wine here, as I say, grows in these lovely cool conditions. It's going to be hand picked. The wine is destemmed, is crushed, and has a brief 6 or 7 hour cold maceration prior to fermentation. So it's held so that the lovely aromas can be taken out of the skins into the juice, and that goes on at a low temperature, about sort of 6 or 7 degrees, so as not to allow the fermentation to start. Fermentation goes on at just 15 degrees C, so there's quite a bit of cooling involved in that. So it's quite a slow fermentation to retain as many of these lovely aromatics as possible. So let's have a look at the wine, shall we? See what we make of it. First thing to say is there's a reasonable depth of colour. I mean, that's a medium to deep yellow colour there. There is almost a slightly reddish hue. It's not really pink, but you can sort of see that there's some depth to the colour. Now, the alcohol's not particularly high. This sort of says 11.5, and it's not particularly viscous and clinging to the glass. So let's have a look at the aromas and see what we make of those. Those aromas are very typical of Mantinea. There is this lovely lifted muscati sort of rose petal, maybe almost lychee sort of note, a rich fruit, slightly oily fruit note, but also there's quite a distinct saline note at the top of that, which is actually quite attractive in real life. Tasting that, there's a soft, smooth texture. The wine's not spent any time in oak, and only at the end do you get a little bit of structure that's come from the pre-fermentation maceration. You've got a lovely, juicy, almost muscati, but it's that sort of delicate, lifted rose petal fruit. Because it's lifted because of the lovely acidity that's coming through. It's fresh, it's crisp, there's no oak. This is a nice simple wine with a lovely perfumed fragrance that comes through from start to finish, really. It has reasonable length, but even at the end there's that sort of rose petal, almost to a sort of a slightly lychee note. There isn't really an oily texture, but the oily character is sort of seen on the aromatics, if that makes any sense. As I say, the alcohol's only 11.5%, so that's not particularly intruding. So this would go beautifully with a sort of a Greek salad or something like that, just providing a lovely sort of floral backdrop to those notes. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you find this interesting. Moschofilero, it's a variety that I love drinking during the summer. Well worth seeking out.